Now, let's talk about what's happening with our water resources. And you know, as well as I know, that South Africa is a water-scarce country and is currently going through one of its worst drought periods in decades. Provinces, these include the Northwest Province, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo and the Free State, have all been declared disaster areas. But what is causing the drought and what can be done to save the little water that we have at this time? Joining me in studio is Dean Muruven, who is from WWF-SA. Good to have you, Dean. Thank you so much for being on the program with us.
Thank you for having me here.
So we keep talking about the causes of the current drought situation, and the word El Nino keeps coming up. Is that the case for all of the provinces that are involved here? Because, I mean, Gauteng is, I know we're not a disaster area yet, but I imagine we're moving in that direction.
Yeah, so I think it's important to first understand that drought's a natural phenomenon. And we know that two of our provinces at the moment, so KwaZulu-Natal and the Free State, have been declared disaster zones in terms of the drought. I think our problems in Gauteng are perhaps more related to the heat wave and the supply issues. I think there was a gentleman from Rand Water who spoke before me talking about those supply issues. But what climate change and El Nino does do is exacerbate the effects of drought, making them quite more intense than we expect. South Africa has had great weather for probably the last 10 years, so we should be in a drought cycle, but it probably is a little bit more intense than perhaps we've expected.
Yeah, I imagine with these heat temperatures, I mean, you know, just here in Gauteng alone, I mean, it's up to 38 degrees that we're experiencing. But we don't experience those things. And one thing that we love about living in Gauteng are those amazing downpours and thunderstorms that we see in the afternoon. We don't see that anymore. We really, really don't. I mean, you know, where does this leave us and the country in a situation like this?
Well, you know, it's really interesting for us as a country, and I think I was chatting to a colleague yesterday on it, and I think we're at a tipping point in terms of shifting our paradigm as to the way we perceive water. We need to move towards operating like we are the 30th driest country in the world, a water-scarce country. I mean, only 8% of our land area delivers over 50% of our surface water. Sure. So these are strategic water source areas. So in a crisis situation like this, it's important for us to look at how we can protect those areas for our long-term water security.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about the wastage of water as well, because I mean, we're talking about at some points on a municipal level, 37% of water loss occurs in most of South Africa's municipalities. How do we, you know, protect this water? How do we ensure that there is no wastage at this point, especially in a drought situation?
That's, of course, a major challenge for us in the country. That number that you mentioned, that 38%, equates to just a tick over 7 billion rand of water lost a year.
Sure.
So it's significant. And one of the things we need to do is get a little bit smarter about how we use our water and become a little bit more effective in terms of managing what we do. And that has to transmit right through down to the citizens at home. You need to understand that if you have a leak, you need to report it, and it has to be repaired timelessly by the municipalities. So those become crucial in addressing these issues. I mean, you can't be losing that amount of water in a system in a drought situation as well. The other thing that can be done is encourage innovations to come through in this space, you know, technical innovations as well as governance innovations. I think that's a really important aspect. I mean, we've seen through our partnership with the Danish embassy some of those innovations in terms of metering in the rural areas like Lephalale, just to address the situation of leaks.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to encourage in the water sector as a whole for our country.
I mean, we talk about huge issues with, I was relaying a story that I was reading that even Eskom is struggling under these situations because they've seen an uptick in people using, you know, air conditioners and whatever else it may be. But the coal-fired power stations, they depend a lot on water as well. And how do we cut that down? How do we try and preserve water with that kind of mechanism?
Yeah, I think you've touched on a very important point, the whole food, water, energy nexus, you know, and how all of those things are actually intertwined. You know, you need agriculture, water for the agricultural sector, and of course water for our energy sector. And because they're so interconnected rather in each other, it can create a problem. Now, one of the things that we've seen working quite closely with our Danish partnership again was a process called the SNOX process. And that effectively reduces emissions, but uses less water in the coal-fired power stations. And it's a technology that works. It's applied in Austria and a number of coal-fired power plants around the world. So those are things that we need to be brave about to actually trial and effectively pilot in our power stations. So again, it comes back to a willingness to allow innovations through in the system.
Yeah. Look, we have to leave it there for this morning, but I also think from the Rand Water perspective, we were given a lot of advice as to what we as citizens can do as well. And I think as much as corporates are, I suppose, to blame, but it's also us that just waste our water, whether it be filling up our baths too much and taking long showers, watering in the middle of the day our gardens, and also filling up pools until they're overflowing. You know, these are just some things that you need to think about. And running that tap while you're brushing your teeth, if you're doing that right now, come on, guys, switch that tap off. You can just have a little bit of water to do it. Thank you for talking to us. It really was a pleasure having you. Dean Muruven from WWF-SA, talking about the drought situation here in South Africa. All right, let's...